Year A Lesson 17, Faithful in Affliction. Thursday's lesson is entitled, God Interrupts Elihu. Memory verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 9. We have been made a spectacle to the world, both to angels and to men. Elihu gave a kinder explanation about suffering, but his thinking was only partly right. Job's three friends insisted that all suffering is God's punishment. Elihu believed that God permits suffering to help people grow stronger characters. That's in Job chapters 33 to 35. As Elihu continued talking through chapters 36 and 37, a storm rolled in. Everyone was frightened by the flashes of lightning and the crashes of thunder. And as the rain poured and the wind blew, Elihu talked about God's majesty and power and how helpless we are in comparison to Him. Then, like the crashing thunder, a voice spoke to Job out of the roaring wind. God had been listening the whole time. He knew just what each person was thinking. Now, one after another, he asked Job many, many questions, and Job wasn't able to answer any of them. Read some of them in Job chapter 38, verses 4, 5, 12, 22, 35, and 39. Verse 4. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Verse 5. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Verse 12. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the dayspring to know his place? Verse 22. Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow? Or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail? Verse 35. Canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, Here we are? Verse 39. Wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions? In chapter 40, God stopped the questions long enough to ask Job if it was really wise for humans to argue with him or try to understand everything about him. Job chapter 40 verses 1 to 5. Moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, Shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer it. Then Job answered the Lord and said, Behold, I am vile. What shall I answer thee? I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. Once have I spoken, but I will not answer. Yea, twice, but I will not proceed no further. Then God went right on asking more questions. How was Job feeling by the time he stopped? Job chapter 42 verses 1 to 6. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered that I understand not, things too wonderful for me which I knew not. Hear, I beseech thee, and I will speak. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee. Wherefore I abhor myself, and repent in dust and ashes. Finally, Job repented, but not in the way his friends had thought he should. He realized that he was a sinner like everyone else, and that neither he nor his friends deserved any blessings because of their good deeds, and neither do we. Next, God spoke to Job's three friends. They had tried very hard to explain why Job was suffering so much, but their thinking was wrong. How did God feel about them? Do you think they were surprised? Job chapter 42 verses 7 and 8. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against thee, and against thy two friends, for ye have not spoken of me the things that is right, as my servant Job hath. Therefore take unto you now 7 bullocks and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering, and my servant Job shall pray for you. For him will I accept, lest I deal with you after your folly, and that ye have not spoken of me the thing which is right, like my servant Job. Let's apply it. Job's friends were not alone in thinking that bad things that happen are punishments from God because of sins. Hundreds of years later, when Jesus' disciples saw a man who was born blind, they asked whether his or his parents' sins caused his blindness. What was Jesus' answer? John chapter 9 verses 1 to 3. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, Neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. And of two other calamities, Jesus said that those killed were not worse sinners than their neighbors. Luke chapter 13, verses 1 to 5. There were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. And Jesus answering said unto them, Suppose ye that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans, because they suffered such things? I tell you, nay. But except you repent, ye shall all likewise perish. Or those 18 upon whom the tower in Siloam fell, and slew them, think ye that ye were sinners above all men that dwelt in Jerusalem? I tell you, nay. But except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish.